I'll try to test the API manually via Postman, see if the data is, if it's even returning the data at all. So yeah, troubleshooting integrations is like basically solving a mystery. So you keep eliminating
Right.
suspects, yeah, until you find the right culprit. Yeah.
So you probably read a lot of Nancy Drew in
Yeah.
early on in your life,
I'm a
huh?
big Nancy Drew, Sherlock Holmes fan. Hercule Poirot, everything.
That's too funny. I like that. Detective work for data. So once it gets fixed, how do you make sure the data itself is accurate?
Yeah, data validation is like such a big part of integrations because data is very important to these systems, and you have to make sure that the data that we are sending or receiving from one end to the other is absolutely correct because you cannot mess up with the data. So before like anything goes live, you have to start with the sample data first, validate all the formats, all the mappings, make sure the really sensitive fields, basically the emails or the IDs or the dates, because dates tend to get messed up very frequently. So you need to make sure that all of these are lining up correctly. And while building the integrations, I often try to build the error handling and the validation logics directly into it. So if even if there is any bad data, it doesn't even enter the target system, and it can let you know that okay, this is the error at this particular record. You can use a unique ID to identify like which record is getting messed up. And yeah, and accuracy is like everything because even one small mismatch can create like bigger issues later on.
Sure, no, that makes a lot of sense. And from a security standpoint, let's touch on that for a second. Do, integrations involve sensitive data? How do you keep everything secure?
Yeah, security is like the one area where there's like zero compromise. So everything basically runs over the HTTPS. Authentication is handled through OAuth 2.0 or secure API keys, and sensitive values like tokens and passwords are always encrypted. And I also make sure that the integration only has to access the specific data that it needs, not the complete system. So it's like, giving someone a key that opens just one door, not the complete building, right?
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And always on secure internet. So that's a great analogy. Shifting gears a little bit, when you get start, new integration project, how do you gather requirements, from the customer and understanding their systems?
Yeah, so I start with the conversations. So I'll talk to the business users first. Not just to understand what systems need to connect, but like why, what is the need, what solution we are building behind the scenes, what target we are trying to achieve, right? What problem we are solving, what actually needs to move, and the frequency of the move also is a very key factor in while building integrations. Once I have all the clarity, I'll map out everything in like a quick flow diagram, and I'll share that with the complete team, and so that like everyone's on the same page before we even start touching on like the tools and everything.
Okay, so when you're actually doing integrations like between an ERP system back into Salesforce, a lot of times you're actually having to build all the different fields within a custom object. Is that typically, you're mapping, then you have to decide what type of field types there are to make sure that the
Yeah.
data is flowing, correct?
Yeah, correct. So I'll first like have a conversation with the business users, and I'll see what the data needs that needs to move, and then I'll check my system. So let's say my system on this endpoint is Salesforce. So I'll create the custom objects and the architecture and the fields and the data types accordingly, depending on what data they are having. And then we'll move the data. We'll start moving. We'll start with small records first, just testing how everything is looking, and then we'll
Okay,
move with a big full load. Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. And how do you personally stay up to date with all this? I mean, that's obviously always evolving as far as, new tools and new integration workflows and so forth, I'm sure.
Yeah, so with IT, evolution is like a big part of this field. So with keeping up to date with this, honestly, you have to just stay curious. You have to read a lot. So I read like the tech blogs, and the product documentation, any community posts that keep propping up. Maybe go on LinkedIn, connect with similar similar-minded people so that I can
Okay.
see
Yeah.
what they are working on as well. But the real learning happens when I try things hands-on. I'm more of a kinesthetic learner. So even if I read anything, I'll forget it. But unless and until I do it with my hands, I get my hands dirty, then only I'll get the concept of like how and why and what things move. So, I'll just spin up a sandbox, play around with a new connector, like break a few things. Obviously, there are going to be errors, and then figure out how to fix them. So that kind of an experimentation keeps me kind of sharp on my toes
Yeah.
and helps me bring like fresh ideas to every project.
No, that's great. And another thing, as far as like what industries have you worked on, as far as doing integration types, and within a couple of those industries, what kind of tool or what have you integrated with Salesforce? If you can kind of elaborate a little bit on that to get an idea.
Yeah, so I've majorly worked on education cloud. Um,
Okay.
so the client that we had, they had the data of the university, but not the students, the teaching staff or the people that were taking the classes and where they were taking the classes and what kind of achievements they had, what kind of goals they had. So basically, the staff that is working in that particular university, right? So that kind of data we had to integrate with Salesforce. And also, I have recently worked with the B2B endpoints. So one was we had a B2B client, which is Texas, and then another was a big commerce site where we had to like they had their data, like products and the customers and everything in like some formats, and we had to get those formats and load it into the big commerce site so that the end users can have an e-commerce platform ready to go, so they can like Amazon, how Amazon works, so you can click on the product, select it, add to cart, checkout, and everything. So in the latter part of this project, I worked with Workato. So getting the data in TSV files and then using it to map to whatever fields we have in BigCommerce end, and then doing the loads accordingly.
Okay. And when you mentioned B2B, are you talking about Commerce Cloud? Salesforce
Yeah.
Commerce Cloud?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was BigCommerce. I did not work on that end of
Okay.
the system, but yeah, it was BigCommerce.
Okay. And have you done any like financial cloud or working with banks and so forth, or just predominantly right now with education?
Not yet. I haven't had the chance yet to work with banks or healthcare as such, but
Okay.
fingers crossed. Here's hoping.
Yeah, no, awesome. So, but you worked with, like you said, Wakata, MuleSoft, Jitterbit, Boomi, and
Yes.